Today, let's look at how much core strength I need to be able to hold this handstand. So I could go into different positions here. So I just go into a relaxed position like this. I'm using, I don't know, 5 to 10% of my core. I'm not actively pulling my belly button in. I'm not bracing my abdominals in any way. Now, if I do this and start to go down towards under balance, now things are starting to change. Notice my voice is changing, so the strength demand is much more. If I go into the opposite direction and go over here, now the demand is much more as well. So I'm using the core, if we want to call it that, much more when I go out to the outside of my window of balance. And also if you said to me, show me your best handstand line, and I push up, reach, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the abs, you can hear my voice changes. So now I'm using 80, 90% of my core. But if I relax and just do a long hold, I'm using 50%, 40% or less. It's exactly the same as when we're on our feet. So if I'm standing here in this position like this, I'm not really using any core control to stay here. But if I start to lean forwards, I'll get to a point where now I'm working and there needs to be some activation from head to toe to try and stop myself from falling towards overbalance. Or if I go back towards underbalance, exactly the same thing is happening. Now I'm having to work. The intensity has increased. I can pull back again to the middle and now I relax. If I said I wanted to show you my best posture and I'm going to hold in this position, I'm going to draw the belly button in, I'm going to squeeze the abs. Now my core is on, but look, I'm in this position. And it gets to a point where that is unusable. Now when we're learning to handstand and I'm not so good at my balance window, my handstand is going to look a bit more like this. So I'm going to have to try and get a connection between my feet and my hands. My feet are actually trying to control the handstand way too much. I'm not doing enough with my base. So my core activity or my core control to try and calm that down is increased. So the beginner is going to have more activation of muscles in general, including their core, compared to someone who has very good balance, who can just sit in the middle of their balance window and hang out there. Now also, if you're lacking in mobility and you're trying to get into a cleaner, straighter handstand, but you literally don't have the mobility when everything's stacked together to get into it. So if my standard handstand position looks like this, and to get to this position, I'm actually trying to push beyond my flexibility range. That's going to also increase the demand, the intensity. So my core demand goes through the roof, just trying to get into a straightest line compared to someone who has good mobility that can just stack comfortably and still hold a conversation. Now, if we layer skills on top of that, exactly the same thing happens. So if I go into a press handstand, I need a certain amount of compression or flexibility to bring my legs and my torso together and get my hips high enough on top of my hands. The better I am at that, so if you listen to my voice, I can press, and it's not, apart from I hit the wall, it's actually not that hard. So the demand on my core, on my intensity of the exercise is relatively low. But if I change it to a harder variation of a press, so if I go to more of a planche press like this, notice my voice changes and the intensity goes up, so the core demand also goes up. Exactly the same when I do a handstand push up. So I have this standard position here that's going to use a certain amount of core. As I go through the movement, the handstand push up, the eccentric isn't too bad, but I can feel my abs are activating a little bit more now, and when I push back up, there's more demand. But if I'm not so good and my body does this and now I'm out of control and I have to arch and move around a lot, there's going to be a lot higher demand for all my muscles, especially the connection from the hands to the feet, because there's a disconnect. So I'm rapidly trying to correct and rebalance and hold the body together as I do it. So it's impossible to answer how much core is involved in a standard handstand because it depends person to person, how tight they are on a particular day, how good their balance window is, how strong, how conditioned they are. So it changes day to day, exercise to exercise. But it highlights again that we need to constantly work on our balance window, so become stronger and stronger in this position so I can go underbalanced, I can go overbalanced in that position and come back to my center. That means if I move around a little bit, it's not demanding too much from me and I have a lot more room for error. I need to work on that flexibility so I'm not forcing myself into a straighter position. And movements like hollow body holds are really, really good because it teaches us to stay as one segment in a higher demand, way higher demand than I'm going to use in the handstand itself. So it means I've got an excess of strength, ideally an excess of mobility, as long as I can control that, because it can go in the opposite direction. So if I'm super flexible, I'm going to find that my body wants to go into crazy positions. I struggle to demo that one because I'm not crazy flexible, but trying to control those ranges means that I'm using more core control. Now you could go into anatomy and try and work out what core muscles are working, but what is the core? Is it the inner unit, the outer unit, the rectus abdominis, the transverse abdominis, the internal obliques, the external obliques, etc.? It doesn't really matter, we just need to make sure that we've got a great connection from our feet to our hands. So let me know down in the comments if you have any questions on this one. Reach out if you'd like coaching, either online or with my app. Check out this video if you'd like to learn how to widen your balance window in your handstand, and I'll speak to you next time.